What's up, guys? In this video, we're going to be going over a one-trick tier list, talking about the best and worst characters to one trick based on how easy they are to counter and how efficient they are at dealing with the entire roster of heroes. But do me a solid and smash that like, subscribe if you enjoy this content, and let's jump right into the video. Now, the first character that we got to talk about is Ana, and Ana really is a character that fits in a ton of different compositions. You can play Ana in a brawl. It's really strong in a brawl, nanoing a Zarya, nanoing a Junker Queen, nanoing a Ramatra. On poke can work with Ana. You can be more aggressive. You're not gonna necessarily need to heal nearly as much as normal. You can do long distance nades. You can use your gun a lot more. And then in a dive, of course, you can nano dive targets, nano Genjis, nano Winstons, look for long distance nades. I will say that you definitely will have characters that you could struggle with that can dive you, but a lot of your counter to that is skill. Like, as you get better, you're going to be able to deal with anything. I really think that if someone one-tricks Ana, no one even thinks of them as a one-trick player. Like, you're only playing Ana, no one really thinks of you as a one-trick. They just think of you as an Ana player. I'm putting Ana in the S tier. I think that's fair. Now, the next character on our list is Ashe. And Ashe is really versatile as a character. You can play her in poke. You can play her with brawl. She's okay, I guess, in a dive composition, or at least a ranked dive composition where you have dive characters and you have Ashe. The only problem with Ashe is I think that there are counters to her, and that's specifically like other snipers like Hanzo, and then she could get dove technically. And then, of course, she's a lot better with the Mercy Pocket. So there are some counters. There are some ways to shut her down. I'm still thinking that she's good overall. I'm going to say that one-tricking Ashe is perfectly fine. I would say A tier. Hammond. This is the one trick that you see the most, probably. I think Hammond one-tricks are very common. And I do think that specifically Hammond, especially now, has just a little bit too many counters for him to be a good one-trick character. I actually talked about Hammond in the tier list, how Hammond's good, but between Mei and Cassidy and Brig and all this CC, you're gonna have a really tough time one-tricking this character. I mean, you can do it if you become really cracked at this character, sure, but it's gonna be really hard. And I think that because of how easy it is to counter you, oh, I forgot to mention Sombra, of course, Sombra really hard counters you. There's so many characters that can shut you down. I think it's gonna be a C tier pick right now. In previous metas, probably B. Right now, really rough, really hard to one trick. I would say that two-tricking Hammond, he's awesome. One-tricking Hammond, good freaking luck. Everyone's just gonna whip out characters that shut you down. And you have to be willing. Like, if they're rocking Sombra Cass or Sombra Mei, like, come on, just get out. Get out. Swap off. Swap off. Bap. I think that Bap is actually S. And let me explain why. Bap kind of does everything that you need him to do. He can pocket a lot. He can do a lot of damage. He can help people, you know, help his team by just outputting a ton of heals. Bail out his team with Immortality Field. And really, think about the compositions that are played. On compositions like poke, he's really good in poke. He can do a lot of damage in poke. His ultimate amplification matrix works really well in poke. In a brawl, he's just amazing in brawl. He's going to get ultimate really fast in brawl, and he can help your Rein or your Zarya play way more aggressive. And then on a lot of dive compositions, that's where he's the weakest, he still plays well on the maps, and he still can play well into a dive by just taking height. Like, let's say you're playing Nubani attack with the dive composition. He can just exo boots up to the edge, play up top, deal damage with his team, throw in an aggressive lamp if he wants to. He can still contribute, and I think that just the chaotic nature of ranked, like, you're not getting a perfect dive composition anyways. I think he just fits in the same way that Ana really fits in. He just fits in to just about anything. I think he's a really good one-trick character. If you're a one-trick, I think he's really hard to count. Like, there's not really a Bap counter either. I think he's up here. Next up, let's talk about Bastion. Bastion. I mean, come on. Do I have to say anything? Bastion's a D tier one-trick character. Come on. This character is countered by everything. His hitbox is so huge. It's more like he's countered unless he's whipped out in the right situation. So if you walk out, like, odds are he's not going to be good most of the time. There's too many characters that can do too many things about him. A Zen alone is going to abuse him. Sleeps, just abuse him. Nades, abuse him. Genjis, Tracers, freaking Hanzos. I mean, Arissa's, Hogs, Diva. I mean, come on. The list goes on and on. Like, this character has a hard time with a lot of characters. I think he's better as a character that you swap to when you need him, not a character that you play and just lock every single game. gonna be a hard time. Brig. Now, I think that Brig is actually really strong most of the time. I will say that she's a bit hard to one-trick for a couple of reasons. She's hard to one-trick because if you're playing with another support, like Brig Mercy, I think is really, really poor. You'll find Mercy mains, you'll find Zen mains. Really hard to play Brig with those characters. So, you know, there's going to be some amount of the time where you can still lock Brig, but, you know, 2 one-tricks in the same composition, a little bit awkward. Plus, there's some threats that you just can't really do anything about as Brig, and it's frustrating. A Widowmaker, pretty annoying to deal with. A Flyer, pretty annoying to deal with. Like with Ana and Bap, you can at least contribute to those problems. Or contribute to solving those problems, but Brig, you can't. I think I'm going to put her in the B tier. I think that she can be good, but yeah, there could definitely be some problems. Next up, let's talk about Cassidy. I think that Cassidy is super strong right now in the meta, period. His freaking goddamn grenade is just completely busted. It's just flying around corners and doing all this crazy stuff. But I will say that there are times when you're getting abused on Cass. You're getting joint dove. He doesn't play well into a dive composition. So if you have a dive tank, like if you have a Doom or if you have a Winston, all of a sudden you're left behind and getting just destroyed. Like you could be left behind really easily on this character. In addition to that, like he really doesn't play into every comp. He's not really that good on the poke comp meta, like the poke maps. He's not really that great with dive, but still, I think overall, you can still play him based on his power level into those comps or with those comps, and he's like fine. I'm going to put him in the A tier just because of his power level alone. You got to understand that when a character is powerful enough, the character just has overlap in ranked with other metas, like other comps, right? Normally, you would just play a character in a comp, like a specific comp, but like think of Tracer, right? This is like the perfect example where, yes, Tracer is best in a dive composition, probably, but Tracer's so strong that you can play Tracer in any composition always. That's just how versatile the character is. Cassidy is there because of his power level, not his versatility. But anyways, let's talk about Doom. Come on. Come on. Yeah, it's a rough day out there for Doom. You just get, it's the same problem with Hammond. There's just a million things that can shut you down. Like a million things that can shut you down in the roster. You have problems with sleep. You have problems with freaking all the CC in the game, you know. You're getting grenaded by Cassidy. You're getting hacked. You're having a hard time. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Really, if you had another character in the roster, I think you would be much better off. Honestly, just removing Doomfist from your hero pool might make you better off. But, you know, I'm a Doomfist main myself. I know the struggles of Doomfist mains, and especially in this meta and just in general. He's a really hard character to one-trick. The plus side to him, though, is you have a lot of skill expression. So if you're really, really good at Doom, you can kind of destroy people, like, in a way that a lot of characters cannot. But you have to be a lot better than the lobby. If you're playing in your own rank, right, you're going to get, you know, shit on, right? Especially if they know you're not going to swap. Way too easy. Now, the next character on the list is D.Va, and I think D.Va has the opposite problem. D.Va is an S tier, and here's the reason why. D.Va can play a million different styles. She's like a chameleon, where she can play defensive and reactive. She can play aggressive. She can dive. She can do all these things, and she gets to pick and choose her engagements, so she never has to take a bad one. There's a brawl character that she doesn't want to fight close. She picks and chooses her battle. She goes on their backline from high ground to high ground. There's someone that, like, maybe there's a tank that she wants to ignore. She can dive the backline, go pick someone. She plays into a dive. She can play in a poke, technically. You can play poke with D.Va. You can even play brawl with D.Va. Of course, it's not going to be the same, and it's going to be a little bit different, like a more of a hybrid brawl where you primarily just play to peel your DPS, like peel your cast, peel your Mei. But still, D.Va's just like a chameleon. She's flexible in her playstyle, and I think that, you know, she's good. She's always good. And plus, of course, the flyers. She's one of the few characters in the roster, or the tanks in the roster, that can deal with flyers. There's a lot of reasons why I think D.Va deserves S for a one-trick character. Really, really strong. Echo. Echo is good. There are a couple of problems with the character, though, as a one-trick. There are, of course, counters to you, you know, for whatever reason. Maybe they're playing pocketed freaking Ashes, pocketed Ash D.Va, or maybe you don't have a pocket is another problem. There are definitely comps that can completely shut you down, and you're better on high ground oriented maps. And there's just a lot of map-specific stuff for Echo. Not on any of the long-distance sniper maps, she's pretty bad on. I'm going to put her in the B tier. I think that she would be fine, but you have to really learn how to change your playstyle up dramatically from place to place, situation to situation. Genji. Genji as far as a one trick. And this one might be a little bit of a hot take because people are going to think that I'm going to put him in the C tier. You know, I'm going to put him all the way down here. And in a lot of ways, I could see that, but I'm actually going to put him at the bottom of B. And the reason that I'm putting Genji a little bit above some of these other characters is because while he can definitely be countered, I don't think he gets individually countered as hard by a one character. Like, one Sombra fundamentally changes how you play around everything with Ball and Doom. Like, you have to change the entire way you play and even approach engagements. And most of the time, most of your engagements on like Doom and Ball, you're going to be baiting out cooldowns, like being really disciplined with that. But Genji can kind of pivot in a lot faster. And if you're really mechanically good, you can definitely get away with it. I'm not saying that he can't get hard countered and shut down. We all know that. Every Genji main knows that. But I do think that you can force him a little bit harder due to your burst potential and just due to the fact that you can really just like kind of abuse a lot of the best characters in the game right now. Cassidy, Hanzo, Ana, Zen. Like, you can definitely punish these characters. I'm going to put him in the very, very, very low B. I think he's a little bit easier to one trick than C and D. You do see a lot of one tricking Genjis as well. And yeah, I'm gonna put him there. Hanzo. I'm gonna put Hanzo up in the A tier. I think Hanzo's a really, really good character to one trick. He's super strong. There are a couple of weaknesses to Hanzo. He doesn't play well with a dive or against a dive. He plays really well in a poke. He plays really well with and against a brawl, but against dive, he can struggle. If you're getting hard dove and committed on, you don't have a huge window of time in order to hit shots. If Divas, Winstons, you know, these characters are jumping at you, you can kind of get punished pretty easily. I'm going to put him in the A. I think he's really powerful, and you're definitely going to have to learn how to, you know when to play really wide off angles. Sometimes know even when to go for solo plays and not just play with your team. But yeah, I think he's like a decent one trick, but nowhere near like the best characters to one trick for sure. Junker Queen. So Junker Queen in this meta, I think is a really, really great one trick because she's just so goddamn powerful. She's not the most versatile character in the world though. If you're playing with, I don't know, some divers, or if you're playing with double sniper, she can be kind of awkward. I think she's good. I think that she's about this versatile. I'm gonna put her here. She's just really, really strong. She's only up here because of her power level, not because of her versatility. In previous metas where she was weaker, I would put her lower down. But because she's just so strong, it's like fine to like, as the tank player, be the one that's just like, I'm deciding what we're doing. I'm deciding what comp we're playing, and I'm just gonna brute force the value out of this game. Junk Rat. Now, this is probably one of the most one tricks that you see, like, at all. Like, I think you see a ton of Junkrat one tricks, and they get really freaking crafty, right? Just like the crazy lineups, stuff like that. He's definitely not a great character to one trick, though. I think if you were someone that just played Junkrat on certain maps, in certain positions, with certain comps, you would be amazing. But really, like, the fact that these Junkrat mains make it work is a testament to their skill and expertise, not a testament to how easy this character is to one trick. I'm gonna put him at the top of C tier. I think he's not really that great to one trick. It's just these Junkrat mains are like something different. They're just something different. I don't know what to say. They are. Kiriko, if those of you saw my support tier list, you know where I'll put Kiriko in a one trick tier list. I would say that she's probably the best, if not one of the best, one-trick characters in the game. She plays in every composition. She plays in all of them. She plays in dive. She plays in poke. She plays in brawl. She's always going to be good and ranked in her current state. She just gives you the means to do what you need to do. Her ultimate's strong. You can be aggressive. You can flank. You can play peel. You can dive in. I mean, come on. You're not going to get freaking punished. There's just so much you can do. Definitely a really, really great one-trick character. Life Weaver. Now, Life Weaver just got some buffs. Previously, Life Weaver would have been like triple F tier. Now, a little bit better. But here's the thing about Life Weaver that makes him still not that great to one-trick. Life Weaver has comps that they play well into, like play well with, and characters they play well with. I think characters that can utilize the platform, like Cass, maybe even a Bastion, and they don't play well, I don't think, into dive. They need an optimal composition. I think that Life Weaver is really like a D tier character. I think Life Weaver is actually good. After playing against Life Weaver quite a bit, I think Life Weaver is actually strong, but it's not a character that you want to necessarily one trick, right? It's a character that you want to whip out in the right situation, not a character that you're locking every single game, because he's not really flexible in what he does. there's a huge disconnect. Like, if you're playing with the dive, like, sure, you could pull back your divers, but you're not going in with them. You're not helping them in any meaningful way from the distance, right? You're not doing any of that. In a different way, like, Kiriko can, like, choose. Kiriko can go in with the dive. Kiriko can help you out with Suzu, which in a lot of ways is just more powerful than pull in a dive composition, because you don't want to completely disengage your tank. You just want to save them and not just take away all the space that they gained. So basically, Lifeweaver has very specific comps that he's good in and that he works in, and he has specific comps that he's bad against. So yeah, I'm putting him in the D tier. Sue me. Lucio. Basically does very well in dive and brawl, but terrible in poke. Just like the worst thing to be doing in poke. Really, really bad. I think that you can definitely, like, be a very aggressive Lucio that tries to boop the enemy tank at a position against poke. I think that can work. I think that he probably is about the brig placement, I would say. I'm going to say, like, right about here. They're about the same. I'm just going to put him right there. I think that you can change up his playstyle to an aggressive one, but he's a pretty hard character to one-trick, I would say. Mei is fantastic against brawl, fantastic in poke. Decent against dive, but not good with dive. So she's good in most compositions. I would say that overall, she's actually a really, really strong character to one-trick, especially in this current meta. Doesn't have a lot of counters, has good play against a lot of things. I'm going to put her just below Hanzo, about Cassidy. I think they're about the same, where they have really, really powerful abilities, but they don't necessarily slot into every composition. Like, if I was playing like a Winston, Tracer, Kiriko, Lucio comp, I wouldn't want to be on Cass or Mei, right? Or Hanzo, for that matter. They don't really slot into that comp, and that comp is good in some ways, but they fit into pretty much everything else. So, anyways. Mercy. You see a lot of Mercy one-tricks. This is kind of like the iconic Mercy, one-trick character. I would say that Mercy doesn't necessarily get countered this, like, super, super hard like some of these other characters do. But really, she gets less value depending on your comp. That's more important. Not what you're going up against, is what you're playing with, right? If you're playing with Tracer Genji, like Tracer Genji Sigma, what are you even pocketing? Like, what are you even doing? You're doing nothing. You're not going in with your DPS. You're just healing your tank. Like, what? You're doing nothing, right? So there are going to be some compositions that just completely suck with you. A lot of compositions are going to be fantastic with you, right? If you have something to pocket, something like Sojourn, something like Ashe, you have something that's worthwhile to pocket, it's amazing. Or Echo, or any of the flyers, right? So it's a little bit weird. I think overall Mercy is actually not a bad one trick, but yeah, definitely a bit awkward in some situations. I'm gonna put her at the top of B. I think that these three, I know I'm putting them kind of in the same spot, but it's really like these characters fit in certain situations and not in others, right? So it's hard to one-trick this character. Moira as a one-trick, I think is actually pretty good. I know that this is going to be maybe a bit of a hot take, but yes, Moira doesn't heal from distance, and Moira doesn't really play well with a poke composition, which is something that is kind of important to point out. But I do think that due to the nature of ranked, how ranked kind of plays out, an aggressive style of Moira, I think, can fit in most situations. You just find situations to pivot, to be aggressive, to get value out of aggressive pivots with your ultimates. You can burst heal when you need to and be really aggressive in some ways. I think that Moira is like a fine one trick, and especially if we're talking about like metal ranks of play, Moira's even better. I'm gonna put Moira at the top of A, or at the bottom of A, I mean. And no, I'm not just doing this just to not put 4 supports in a row, but yeah, I'm putting Moira at the top of A. Do they deserve that? Oh man, I'm kind of curious now. I think that this character is actually really good as a one-trick character because you put a lot of agency in your hands and you can kind of pair well with any other support. You just adopt your playstyle depending on what they are. I'm putting her here. This one might be, I'm actually not 100% sure on this one in particular. Definitely let me know what you feel about this one in the comments down below. Now, the next character that we're going to talk about is Orisa. Can you one-trick Orisa? I actually think that Orisa one-tricking isn't bad. I think Orisa one-tricking is fine. You're going to lose a lot. No, I'm just kidding. I think that you don't really have that many bad tank matchups, right? You're not going to carry, but you're not going to get countered, which is important. I think overall, like Orisa is like a B, high B. I think that if you just work on really disciplined play around cover, really disciplined ults, you don't go too crazy, you don't try too hard to hard carry, I think you're going to be fine. I think that this character is a really good, or it's a fine one-trick character. Nothing amazing, but fine. I'm actually going to put him right below Mercy, like there. Pharah. Kind of for the same reason of Echo, I'm going to put Pharah here. I think it's the same reason. Like, you really, especially like Pharah really needs that pocket. So like if you're duoing and you can guarantee a Mercy, of course. But one-tricking Pharah, you're just asking for it. You're just asking for every hit scan player in the entire game to just like double swap and shut you down. So but yeah, Pharah players can definitely reasonably get to very high rank. There's a lot of players that do it with Pharah. But yeah, I think that, you know, if you guaranteed the Mercy pocket, I think you could put Pharah here. And if you 100% removed duoing in any way, I think, you know, here or top of C. But I'm gonna put him B. I think that's fair. Ramattra. I mean, y'all all know how I feel about Ramattra. Ramattra is a fantastic one-trick character because he's good in almost every situation. There's not really a comp that he's bad in. There's not really characters that he's bad with. He's very flexible in how he plays. He can poke, he can brawl, he sees opportunity and he goes for them. He can pivot his playstyle on a dime. He kind of molds to whatever you need him to be. And for these reasons, he's an S tier. He's just like, he's the character that I would say that you're never really countered. You're never really, there's not really one swap that the enemy team can make. Like, let's say they're playing a Mei, you can just poke a lot more and be more disciplined with how you're playing. You don't all of a sudden just like have to play in an ineffective playstyle the entire game hoping your teammates do something. You just don't have to do that. He's just really flexible, and for that reason, I think he's an S tier for one tricking. Reaper. Right now, Reaper's really going through a rough time. He's pretty weak overall. I think that on many maps, he's just like terrible. There are a couple maps that I would suggest you to play him on. I think, you know, like some of the Ilios maps, some of the Koth maps in particular, but on the majority of maps, he's pretty bad. He's pretty weak in this meta. Yes, he can't get one shot by Hanzo, but Cassidy just like ruins his day. He just got a nerf. It's, yeah, I'm gonna put him C. I'm sorry, Reaper. It's a rough time for you. You're almost a D tier pick, but I'm gonna put you C for now. Reinhardt. Reinhardt's an interesting one. I do think that, yes, Rein is technically a brawl, right? But hear me out on this one. I do think that Rein can pseudo play different types of play styles. He can pseudo fill a poke tanks role. He can pseudo fill a dive tanks role. Does he do those things well? No. But do they work in meta ranks? Yes, it 100% works in meta ranks. I think that Rein is good for the same reasons that Moira is good to one trick. Plus your ultimate is super strong. You kind of basically, as a good Rein, like when you really learn how to play Rein, one of the things that you learn how to do the most is enforce your strategy onto the enemy. You're not playing the enemy team's game. You're forcing them to play yours. You're putting yourself, like if they're playing dive, you put yourself all the way up to their squishies and just wall them off and just force them to play your game. Completely isolate the enemy tank, the enemy dive tank from the rest of his team. He comes back, you start swinging on his ass. Like, yeah, I think for a lot of these reasons, I'm putting him in low A. I think he's actually good to one trick. I actually think I know he doesn't fit into every composition, but I think that his power level alone and the way that he can like force his playstyle onto the entire lobby, I think it deserves a high rank. You have to know when to be really aggressive on Rein though, and when you should play more optimally and more traditionally. Roadhog, right now, terrible. Actually, always hard time with Roadhog. You just, yeah, come on. You get slept, you get naded, you get killed, you get discorded, you get focused, you cry. I mean, come on. This character has some maps that are okay, I think Gluel and stuff like that, but until his rework, he's not a good one-trick character. You have to be something different to one-trick this character, like I'm Mushroom. If you want to have any value at all, you have to be something completely different. Because like most of us cannot just can't Sigma I think is actually a fantastic one trick, a really great one trick. The only problem with Sigma is he's not going to play well with dive characters at all, but I think that he's just so great, kind of like Rein, at like enforcing what he wants to do. He can go on these off angles, even these full-fledged flanks sometimes, poke down the enemy team, really shut down a lot of DPS. I'm actually going to put him in the high A. I think he's actually really, really good as a one-trick character. Really, really strong. Sure, there's going to be some maps that don't favor him, but his power level and really just his overall strategy, I think, just really works as a one trick. I'm just gonna put him high up. Sojourn. Sojourn deserves S. Very flexible. Can play with dive. Can play with poke. Can play with brawl. Can play with everything. Flexible ass character. I'm actually gonna swap the placement of these like that. I think that that's fair, but yeah, come on. Sojourn is just kind of the character that just plays really, really well, and no matter what composition you're playing, one of the best one tricks that you could possibly play in the game. Definitely deserving of the S tier. I actually think that Sojourn's better than Ana for that in that regard. I'm gonna put her like that. Okay, now we're moving on to Soldier 76. Soldier 76, I think, is pretty lukewarm in most compositions. Like, he can play and everything. I think that makes him a good one-trick character. From a power level point of view, I think he's a bit lower than a character like Sojourn. But from a flexibility point of view, he's high. He doesn't really have that many inherent weaknesses. I just think that he's not able to, like, enforce the whole lobby. Like impact the whole lobby or enforce his impact over the whole lobby. He's kind of like a lukewarm amount of impact, but always impactful. I still think he deserves an S tier though. I mean, he kind of just fits into every composition that you could possibly want him to. You just have to off angle, guerrilla warfare style, take an off angle, poke enemies down. I think he's fine. I'm gonna put him in the S. Sombra. Sombra's a little weird. I think that she's the right amount of disrupt to be good in a lot of compositions. You're good against some characters. There's some compositions that are going to be a little bit hard for you to deal with. Characters like Cass and Hanzo and some of these comps. But for the most part, I do think that Sombra can play, you know, with the brawl. Sombra can really play in ranked with any composition because you can play to disrupt. You can play to shut down. I think I'm going to put her here. I think that that's probably fair in like upper B as a one-trick character. You know, not fantastic because there's some comps that are going to be hard for you to play into, but still a really good one-trick overall. I think that she deserves here. I could see higher, but I'm going to put her right here. Symmetra. I know my boy Meta1 is probably going to tell me to put Symmetra into S tier, and I do think that Symmetra's actually good as a one-trick. Because Symmetra has flexible playstyles, right? You can play Symmetra with the brawl tank. You could play Symmetra for aggressive teleports. Like, you have variability in that playstyle. I'm going to put Symmetra up. I think I'm going to put Symmetra here. I think Symmetra's actually really strong as a one-trick character. And I think a lot of players don't know how to play Symmetra well enough to access that. But if you learn Symmetra, you'll realize how you can adapt your play style to get value in any composition, kind of against any composition. Torb is a bit more linear in where he's good. He's not going to be good at a dive composition at all. But in brawl and poke, I think he's perfectly fine. I'm going to put him like right about here. I think he's about the same, like as Sombra. About there. I think that's about fair. Tracer, I had to put Tracer up in the S tier. I talked about she's just like so strong and so versatile that you can get value with her anywhere. So like if you're a Tracer one trick, I mean, we see a ton of Tracer one tricks. Like, those are common. Like, Tracer is just a really, really great character to play all the time. I think that she's super strong. There's going to be some comps that are a nightmare to deal with. You know, Cassidy May, Cassidy Tor, you know, you're going to have trouble with some comps, right? But most of that is going to be a skill issue. You can definitely play around a lot of that if you're good enough, you know, but yeah, anyways, I'm putting Tracer up in the S tier. We're gonna talk about Widowmaker. Now it's not gonna be that good. Now, not so much. Before, it was a lot better. I think that Widow is high C. I think you could still play her, of course, but there are gonna be some situations where she's really, really bad. Some maps that she's really, really bad. Against some comps, you're gonna have a really hard time with no peel. If I was playing against like a ball Tracer, I would wanna, you know, just end it all against them. So yeah, I'm gonna put Widow there. I think that she's good on some situations, but with the reduction in power level and the fact that you can get countered so easily, high C. Windstone. I'm gonna put Windstone. I think Winston's actually, you're kind of forcing the dive. But yeah, I'm gonna put Winston here. I think he just needs like the right maps and or the right people to play dive with you. Like, you would love to play a Winston with a certain composition. If you could pick it, you know, like Tracer Sombra, Lucio Kiriko, you could pick that comp, you could force Winston all the damn time. The problem is, you're gonna get random shit, like I don't know, like a Torb. You're gonna get like a Torb, Zen, Brig, just some weird stuff, May, whatever. There's some rough times. I do think that he's still super strong. If you're really good with him, you can definitely adapt your play. He's gonna be a pretty hard character, I think, to one trick though. Not who I would definitely suggest to one trick. If I was gonna if you wanted to play dive as a one trick, I would suggest Diva way over Winston for sure, because she's more adaptive in her play style, while Winston is very linear in he's a diver, and that's what he is. He's not nothing else. He's just a diver. Zarya as a one trick, I think, though, is good. Yes, she doesn't play in dive. Of course, she doesn't play well with dive characters, but you can use your bubbles to peel. You can play aggressively. You have a lot of impact over the lobby. I think that Zarya is kind of like a Rhine, like about there. I think that she's actually really good at one trick. I could see this being higher. But she does have key weaknesses. She's not that good against dive as well, in a way that like Junker Queen's a brawler that is good against dive. So like, yeah, I think this is probably fair. Last up is Zen as a one-trick character. You can definitely pop off if you're the best player in the lobby, but yeah, I mean, there's gonna be some awkward compositions as well. The same with Lucio, the same with Brig. I'm gonna put him right alongside his pals. I think that that's about fair. And this, I think, is a fair list of one-tricking. Remember, characters that you can't swap ever. How hard they are to counter. I think it's way easier to counter the characters at the bottom than the top. And yeah, this is where I'm gonna keep the list, and let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the placements in the comments down below. Smash the like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time.